Welcome to Season 3 of the Spotlight series, Don't Just Survive, Thrive. Season 1 was launched to help people through the pandemic by talking to a variety of experts about topics such as psychology, finance, and health. Season 2 focused on more work-related issues, including HR, marketing, and leadership. Now it is time for Season 3. Season 3 is centered on the IT industry, specifically tech startups. There are also career spotlights where I talk to senior IT people about the secrets to their impressive career journeys. My name is Nicola Steel, founder of JJP Talent Solutions, an Australian IT recruitment company. For over 20 years, I've helped tech startups and innovative SMEs to attract, recruit, and retain technical talent. I hope you enjoy listening. I'm delighted to introduce Justin Falk. Justin is the founder of TalentVine, a platform to connect employers and recruiters. Justin, thank you for joining me on Season 3, Episode 17 of the Spotlight series, Don't Just Survive, Thrive.
That's an absolute pleasure. Nicola, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Well, thank you for joining me, Justin. Tell me a bit more about your background and your personal story.
Thank you. So I'm, as you can probably hear from my accent, not from around these parts. So I was actually born and grew up in Zimbabwe. So I was over there, and then I'm not sure how familiar you are with the political situation in that part of the world, but I was one of the 90 people out of my year of 93 that decided to leave Zimbabwe because there's not many options for us after school. And I left from there, went over to the UK. And that's where I was, decided I wanted to be a personal trainer. I was over there, came back from traveling, got a job just temping, packing some envelopes for an employer branding agency where we were sending out, this is still when we had paper-based application forms for large-scale recruitment campaigns. And that was at TMP, part of Monster. And that's really how I started my venture into the world of talent. So just working my way up there. And then eventually I was a project manager running the large-scale recruitment campaigns for MI5. So that was super exciting in the UK.
Wow, so you're dealing with the spies.
I was dealing with the spies, yeah. You got to go to Tim's house and wear this massive lanyard on your chest saying visitor, and you'd have someone follow you around the whole time, even if you went to the bathroom. And you knew everyone was on a first-name basis, knowing they had fake surnames. But yeah, it was... Great.
Wow. On a need-to-know basis. I shall have to,
pretty much.
We'll have to do that secretively. So when did you move to the UK?
So I moved to the UK in 2002. Ended up, so I was there for 6 years, went and did a ski season in France. And then after that, I decided to finally move over to Australia. Coincided quite nicely with me being offered a job over here. So arrived with all this amazing London experience, thinking, you know what, I'm just going to be able to walk into absolutely any job I want to in Australia on the back of that. And that was in September 2008. So not that Australia had much of a GFC, but that's certainly when things start to hit. So no one had much budget for recruitment advertising. So spent a bit of time as a receptionist and landscaper and doing jobs here and there until I finally got sponsored and was able to stick around.
Yeah, it's funny that you 2008. So we came in 2012. We got our visas in January. And the market was great. But as we flew over, I think Campbell Newman came into power. So when we arrived here in Easter of 2012, the market had completely plummeted as well. So similarly to the kind of in Queensland specifically. And it was like, oh my goodness, what bad timing.
Yeah, terrible timing. Thankfully, the weather makes it a little bit easier when you're unemployed and looking for work, right? You get to sit in the sunshine and make the most of your time. That was my experience, at least.
And actually, so did you find coming from overseas, forget about the market in 2008 specifically, but more generally being a foreigner, did you find it more difficult? Or was it just the nature of the market at the time?
Look, I think there was some difficulties, and I think, and the reason I say that is, Brizzy is very relationship based, right? That's one of the things that I learned very quickly, which I think has its positives and its negatives as well. So, I'm not gonna assume that I would have just been able to walk into any role if I was Australian. But I think just having those connections and those referrals and those kind of benefits that I think a lot of employers do see is something that might have been a little bit of a challenge, just not having much of a network. But overall, I find it being quite welcomed into the Queenslander community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody here is very, very friendly and welcoming, but I remember, and it's not as bad now, but when I first came here, that there was very much a focus on being local.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to be so important nowadays, 9 years later, from my experience.
Yeah, right. And with that as well, like with you coming over and being in the recruitment space as well, because there's always this kind of quite an incorrect assumption in the recruitment space that, you just get English backpackers get given a 457 visa and an opportunity to become a recruitment consultant and live in Bondi. And that seems to be the be all and end all. And I think that's that label is put on a few people. So is that something that you've ever struggled with, being British in recruitment, yeah?
Not really. I think that's probably down to my age as well, that I don't really look like a backpacker, because we came here with I was married with 2 kids and quite a lot of experience. So I don't think I'd have looked particularly like a backpacker. But I know exactly what you mean, because I think at the time I thought I'd missed the boat to come to Australia because I was married with children. Anyway, it's not about me. It's about you, Justin.
Okay.
So tell me about, why did you decide there was a need for TalentVine? In fact, tell us a little bit more about TalentVine and why you thought there was a need for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to I'll give a quick overview of TalentVine today, and then that might make a bit more sense when I talk about where it's all coming from. So TalentVine, so we're a marketplace that connects employers to specialist recruiters. We capture key metrics and industry insights to make it really easy for employers to be able to identify and then work with the right recruiters on any role as well. So as TalentVine has evolved as well, we've become like a vendor management platform as well, which is used by a bunch of larger enterprises across Australia to be able to manage all their third-party recruitment relationships. So we've got about 550, 600 recruitment agencies on TalentVine. Our job is certainly to be able to connect them to the specialist roles as well, that they're best placed to be able to service and help employers to place. So that's the gist of it. Now, so going back 5 odd years when decided to give this a little bit of a nudge, I'd come from that employer branding, large scale recruitment experience, as well as then selling psychometric testing. So I realized that in the space, and this is probably not the right reasons to really look to start a business, but I just thought that there was really no kind of transparency and easy way for employers to identify everyone that's offering a service in the HR space, HR and recruitment space. So my original idea of TalentVine was I wanted to create an online comparative site. So if you're an employer and you're looking for an OH&S provider or a psychometric test, or a recruitment agency or an HR consultancy or anything like that, there was this online platform where you could then go and compare and select the ones to work with. So that was my original idea, all gung-ho and full of bravado as we are at that early stage. But then I started actually asking the market and going out to employers and say, okay, so this is my kind of concept. What do you actually want to be able to compare? And how do you want to be able to compare it? And all the feedback that I had coming back, no one gave a shit about OH&S systems or psychometric testing, and that everyone just wanted a way, how do we compare recruiters? And that was the bucket that everyone wanted to know more about. So that's kind of when the penny dropped, and I thought, all right, if I'm gonna do going to do this, this is the area that I should really focus on. And my next assumption, which was quite incorrect, was why people wanted to compare recruiters, and I thought the reason was because recruiters were too expensive. So I thought, right, TalentVine's going to be amazing success by connecting employers to the cheapest recruiter, and as I'm sure you can imagine, that was not a success at all. So if what ended up happening was, there were just really cheap recruiters that were willing to kind of throw an ad up on Seek, and were just true kind of generalists. And at the end of the day, people loved the concept, but they just weren't converting into roles, right? So I realized about 2 years into the journey that we really needed to be able to build a platform that connects employers to the most suitable recruiter, right? And doesn't come down to price. Obviously, price is one of the factors that comes into, but at the end of the day, employers want to be able to hire the most suitable the most suitable candidate. And so everything that we do now boils down to that, to that end goal. And we capture key metrics and performance data on all the recruiters and the work that they do, the areas of specialization, to make it easier for employers then to see, right, does that past experience, does that actually correlate then into their future on the job performance when it comes to them actually hiring, helping to hire niche roles.
That's brilliant. And I really like the fact that you went with these assumptions, realized they were wrong, and then changed the way that you were heading by asking what your clients actually wanted, which is great. So it's been very much a learning journey. And what would you say were the main challenges when you started, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. And I think, some people might think I'm incredibly foolish for wanting to start a marketplace, right? Because I think marketplaces can be some of the hardest businesses to get right. But when they do go right, they go very well, right? So, that's the thing. If we look at some of the largest, tech platforms out there that we all know and use on a daily basis, those are marketplaces as well, right? So one of the biggest challenges is always getting that supply and demand correct, right? Because, what could happen is we could end up having heaps of employers looking for jobs, but actually not having any recruiters on the other side to be able to service that. And then on the other side, I could go and promise the world to a bunch of agencies, they sign up and then just sit there kind of twiddling their thumbs, which probably happened to a fair degree in the early days, right? But the biggest challenges for me was I was a non-tech founder. I didn't have any funding behind me or anything in that early stage, and I was pretty reckless and didn't actually really have any savings, and I just before I quit my job, which was really silly because I just thought, after with this business model, I'm going to be racking in tens of thousands in profit after about 3 months, which I think we always seem to think in those early days, right? So look, as a convoluted way of saying that the biggest challenge was getting that supply and demand right. And so how I did it, and having no technology or team behind me as well, was I would get on the phone and I would find an employer that was advertising, let's say, for example, a .NET developer position, right? I'd phone them and explain, look, I'm Justin from TalentVine. This is the kind of the concept and the idea that I have, and I'm trying to build this platform. And, can I, if you are considering that you might need to use recruiters, would you be open to getting a bunch, some bids? And, if they said yes, then I would go back onto Seek. I would find the agencies that are advertising for a .NET developer, and I would phone them up and say, look, I've got an employer. This is they're looking to hire a candidate. This is the salary range, tech stack, etc. Would you be interested in potentially working on this role? And then I would just take down a bunch of information from them and basically go to the employer via email or face-to-face and pretty much present them with a PDF document. So, saying, there you go, here's Nicola from JJP Talent, and she's got a 5 out of 5 stars. Everyone had 5 out of 5 stars, of course, at that stage. She's happy to work at this fee, this replacement guarantee, and here's a little bit about her. And then the employer would essentially tick the box and sign it off on agreeing to the terms, and then I'd just make an email introduction between the employer and the recruiter. And that's how I just tested the concept, just to see if there was going to be any take up. And so it probably took after doing that about 20 times, we actually had a really good successful placement made for a technology company here in Queensland, who ended up saving $12,000 in the process and found an amazing candidate. And she was then very kindly said, you know what, this concept needs to exist in the market and you need some funding behind you. She was then able to actually introduce me to her early investors. Had a chat with the investors on Thursday afternoon, and they said, great, come and present to us on Tuesday to a room of about 20 or 30 investors, and which I did. So I had no idea what a pitch deck was or anything, but learned quite hard over a 4-day period, and managed to present to them and get some initial seed funding that allowed us to then continue on the journey.
That's brilliant. I love that. So lots of grunt work initially, as you said.
Lots of grunt work. Yes.
Lots and lots of grunt work. Lots of hustle. And also being bold. I mean, some could say stupid by taking out that big loan, but you were in the right place at the right time, making those results happen. And that's awesome. That's really, really good.
Thank you. Still incredibly stupid, and would not advise anyone to do that with a loan at all. But it somehow seemed to pay off.
Well, it's taking. Sometimes you need to take risks, don't you, to make things happen. Sure. And knowing when those risks are right, not just doing them, without really thinking about it as well. So it was that you didn't have the platform as such. You had the concept and the idea, and you were going out and talking to various employers and then approaching the recruiters rather than having the platform as it is now. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So there was no technology. All I had back then was a $400 WordPress site that I'd got someone from on freelancer.com over in Thailand. He built that for me, and there were some contact forms in the back end. But yeah, there was no technology or way for anyone to be able to sign into anything until about 2 years later.
Love it. It sounds like me. Oh gosh, when was it? 2006, when I set up my first recruitment company in the UK, and all I had was my husband's old laptop and a mobile phone. But then the first placement I made, I invested in the business, etc., and it grows from there.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think that's so important, right? It's so many founders can almost have that paralysis, right? Because they feel they haven't got the technology, or, they don't want to get started until they can raise some funding and, hire a bunch of developers and start building out the platform. But, we made that first $22,000, but it's just based on that $400 website, right? So that, we validated the idea before having to spend any money, right? And, we've seen so many similar models to TalentVine that have come and go. And the ones that lasted for the shortest amount of time were the ones that went and spent all this money building this technology before actually realizing how the platform works or how the system works. Because there's so many different nuances and everything in the process now that if we had, spent the money on the technology in those early days, would have been complete waste of money.
Absolutely. Just looking at all the shiny things rather than looking at the core problem.
Correct.
And actually coming to the core again, what would you say are your core values, and how have they really driven the culture there at TalentVine?
That's a great question. And when I did see the information come through, it was a great reminder of, you know what, I need to actually sit down with the team and we need to refresh us on our values. But look, main ones for me is, I'm big on sense of community. So I love being a kind of connector, right, of sorts. And it's just so funny that that's what TalentVine is, right? It's we are a connector, right? And that's exactly what the business model does. So, pretty proud of that aspect. But the other, the other values that we have across the business is, transparency. So that obviously being a big one. We are certainly out there trying to create transparency in the recruitment space, right? Make it easy for those employers to identify the right ones, the best recruiters, and other big aspects for us as well, as part of our values in our business is freedom. To be perfectly honest. So I'm big on freedom and the flexibility, and the fact that we all get our best work done when we trust each other and can just rely on each other to get it done. Our CTO James, I mean, he his dream weekend is to be walking around his property in northern New South Wales barefoot and
Absolutely.
And then other big value as well of mine that I really believe rings true within the business is freedom as well, right? So, we all trust each other to be able to get the job done in the way that needs to be done, right? So it means that we can be flexible when we need. We can have other parts of our life that we continue to kind of focus on outside of TalentVine. I'm big on this as well because I burned myself out to an absolute core in the early days. I think we discussed this on the last the podcast that we were on together, right? And got chronic fatigue, and I was trying to scale a business running on about 10% energy for about 9 months, and so not only for myself, but I really am focused on making sure the rest of the team and everyone else does have that kind of that downtime to do what they're passionate about and what they love. And then it means that when it's TalentVine time, we can really get our heads down and focus a lot more.
I love your values. They're fantastic. Really. Yeah. I all of them resonate with me. Freedom, transparency, and making those connections.
Thank you.
They're great.
We do have 8. So it's community, transparency, productivity, fun. I think it's important that we enjoy the process, right? Startups are hard work, so got to have that. We've got freedom, health, growth, and innovation as well.
Fantastic. And life should always be fun, whatever you're doing, I think.
Exactly.
Even the most mundane of tasks you can make fun with the right mindset.
Well, I got to do some reconciliation and zero after this. So,
oh gosh,
if you can tell me how to look at that in a fun way, I'm all ears.
I'm sorry, I can't. I handle that kind of stuff to my accountant because I can't make that fun.
Clever.
And at what point did you? So you were going out, you're doing all your grunt work and everything. So at what point did you decide to start growing your team? Oh, and you'd got your investment and funding and everything. So what point did you decide to start growing your team?
Yeah, sure. So we got that early stage seed investment. So it was very small. So $70,000. So certainly not a lot, but it was enough for me to be able to start paying myself, a tiny bit of money after 2 years of not earning anything, and then obviously being able to afford to actually bring a developer on board as well. So I was really quite lucky in terms of the people that I had in my network. I certainly spread the word that I was looking to find a co-founder, technical co-founder, and was then introduced to Tex Anderson. So he came on as the co-founder. We went out for a couple of beers, caught up. He had just finished university as well, so certainly knew that he wanted to join a startup, but didn't have much idea about what was involved. And we just started catching up on Thursdays and weekends, because he had Tech still had a full-time job. And we did that for about 6 months until we got accepted into the Murdy Accelerator program, part of River City Labs. And so that just coincided really well for us. And about a month before we started that program, then Tex was able to actually quit his job, come on board. I could actually pay him a salary, and that was the start of it. So there was just the 2 of us perm staff, should I say, just for the first while. But then we had a couple of interns that came and joined us. Both interns actually ended up then becoming either full-time employee or long-term contractors as well with the business as well. So we've had quite good internship graduate programs in the business for us previously. So that's really how we got the ball rolling with our early hires. And you still don't really know what you're doing at that stage. I certainly found. So I was quite scared about actually offering anyone a full-time role because I just didn't know if that was going to be, firstly, if the business was going to be sustainable, right? Because it's a big thing when you're a startup and you're looking to hire someone. They're saying no to other jobs. They're quitting their existing job to come and follow, to be a part of your dream and your passion. And I know it keeps a lot of founders up, worrying about, am I actually still going to be able to pay this person in 6 months' time? So I was quite hesitant in that regard. If I was to do it again, I would back myself more, and I would actually bring some permanent team members on earlier to really drive what we're looking to get done.
Absolutely. And I didn't realise you were part of the of River City Labs. Was that Activate then, or
No, I think that was before Activate. So we were the second. We were the second cohort to come
okay?
out of RCL. Yeah. So first one was the likes of Travello, who are doing
Yeah.
awesome stuff, and then in our year there were 6 of us other ones. So likes of Maxwell MRI. That you might have seen, so they're doing amazing stuff as well as Incodocs.
Fantastic.
Mm.
Oh, that's awesome. So a River City Labs success story, which is fantastic there.
Yeah, River City Lab survival story.
A survival story.
No.
Well, actually, talking about survival, I'm going to mention the dreaded C word now, COVID. So
Mm.
COVID, of course, it hit the world, but when it hit Australian shores, the recruitment market, of course, I was involved in it, just completely plummeted, and
Yeah,
you could feel it happening.
yeah.
So, how did that affect TalentVine, and what did you do to ensure the company's continued success? And how did you support your customers, both the employers and the recruiters there?
Yeah, sure. So, just to show you how much kind of COVID did affect our model, right? So, in February, I think we had about 80 roles on TalentVine that were open, and then in April, that was down to 4.
Mm,
So, the market just completely fell out from under us. So, what did we do? Look, we realized that this was certainly going to be coming and was going to be affecting our business model quite heavily, right? We didn't know if it was going to be 12 months, 36 months, right? No one knew at that time. So we did have to make some changes in the team, unfortunately, and had to get rid of a couple of roles, quite early on. But the team did amazing. We all everyone banded together and really helped everyone and made sure that they got follow-up jobs pretty quickly. So that was pretty important for us all. But that was my first time as a leader having to make any redundancies in that as well, which I found really tough. But certainly had to be done. And the way that I was coached by my mentors to remember to look at that was what you're doing is you survive it. You are ensuring the long term. Ability for your existing team members to just still be able to keep roles, right? And these are hard decisions that we obviously have to make. So a big thing for us was, understanding that the employers and the people that we typically dealt with were going through a hell of a lot of a worse time than us, right? A lot of them, they didn't know if they were going to have their own jobs. They were having to make hundreds, tens if not hundreds of redundancies as well at the same time. So we knew it was not the time to be selling. And we decided that was not what we went out to do at all. It was just, how can we add value? How can we help people so that when things recover, they're going to remember, what, those guys at TalentVine were the ones that really came to assist when things were bad, and so that they would then hopefully be part of our journey on recovery, right? And then on the other side as well, right, we had the recruitment agencies, which was just it was awful to witness, right, from our side, because we had some incredible consultants that we had built up really strong relationships, and every single time that we sent out a newsletter or a new role through TalentVine, we just got all this flood of out of offices coming back to saying, no longer in this position, this person is no longer at this company. So that was quite sad to be in that driver's seat from both the employers and the recruiter side to see actually the extent of how much it hit our industry. We're really lucky in that we had a number of large corporates that continued to hire throughout the whole the process. So the likes of Optus and that. So that was really incremental to us being able to keep the lights on. And the government support here in Queensland, I thought was quite outstanding in terms of the JobKeeper and everything else. So that all combined got us through, and certainly was far off the worst case scenario that we had. We had a number of kind of profitable months and that as well in the middle of COVID. So that was really quite key to us. And we're still here and now in a much better position and starting to rebuild the team again.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well that you say, because you want to be talking to your clients, whether they be employers or recruiters, but you can't be selling. It was really difficult. And that balance of that conversation that I just want to offer value. I just want to support you. And that's actually how this podcast came about. It was about providing advice, be it was psychology and finance and all that kind of thing, things that I didn't understand, but by talking to other people, I thought it would help other people by listening. But yeah, it was a difficult time, but we were very lucky here in Queensland and in Australia on the whole. I know Melbourne would disagree, but that we didn't really suffer too badly. And since then, I'm in IT recruitment. The IT job market in Australia is now going berserk. It is so busy, which is fantastic. I mean, the competition for candidates is incredible. So what impact has that now had on TalentVine?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a very positive, outcome for us. So, yeah, you're right. It's incredibly high at the moment, right? 134,000 people, I think, where Australia is short of at the moment in the technical and specialist, roles, and that's not going to reduce any time over the next 2 years. So, yeah, just hope all employers are doing absolutely everything they can to retain existing talent, because I can tell you right now they've got 4 or 5 good offers on the table from other people, right? So. Look, I mean, what's been quite interesting for us, right, is in the peak of COVID, like I remember we had a position for a statutory body that they used, TalentVine, where we had 36 different recruitment agencies bidding for the opportunity to work with them, right? So that was, normal for us would be around between about 6 and 8, quality bids from recruiters. So that just showed how kind of desperate I think that the market was, for work. Whereas now on the flip side, we've actually seen, there's a few roles that have, niche roles that have gone out where you might only get 1 or 2 bids, from recruiters, and that's just because those top ones know that they are, they're at capacity already. They've got so much work that they're getting directly. So it's just really quite interesting that having, over this last year, doing a complete 180 in the market, seeing both sides, how that does affect kind of marketplaces. But we hadn't done any kind of direct outreach to the recruiter side for about 2 years, because word of mouth and referrals have been really powerful for us. But we have actually been doing some proactive outreach, in the last 2 months, just to ensure that we've constantly got the right amount of support on the other end when employers do need a hand there.
Absolutely. And actually, I was talking to somebody not long before you and I recording this, and I recommended that he should get on the platform. So he's over in Perth there, so there's no competition from my perspective. So helping you grow the TalentVine, keeping you connected.
Thank you. We actually had a bunch of Perth roles last week. So
that's what made me think as well about the Perth roles.
Right.
And I was talking to him, I was like, oh, you'd be perfect. So hopefully he's filled in all the details. And the other thing I was going to say as well is it is highly competitive, the market, the IT market in Australia at the moment, I think on a global scale too. What advice would you give to companies who are trying to hire in this extremely competitive market?
Yeah, great question. I think first thing is, I think so many people are just focused on hiring, and they can almost kind of neglect their existing employees, right? So you speak to a company and ask them what their hiring budget is, or ask them what is their retention budget, and they'll probably look at you with a confused face as well. So do absolutely everything you can to treat your existing employees as as gold, and to keep them on board. So I think that should be the first thing. I think secondly, continue doing, the processes, the sources that have worked for you previously, right? If you're focused on, ask your employees for their, referrals, ask your, whoever your suppliers are and your industry networks as well for, any candidates that they might be suitable. Job boards, I don't think are going to be very, they can be quite hit and miss at the best of times, and especially now, right? So what you find with advertising on job boards is going to be, applicant rich but candidate poor, right? So lots of people applying, if even that, but very few people that you'd actually want in the business. So this is the industry, and I'm very kind of careful about saying this because it being the space that I'm in, right? But you've got to partner with real recruitment specialists, right, that understand the business and that they've got that real proven ability to deliver in your network, in the type of roles that you're looking to hire at that given stage, and treat those recruiters as true partners, right? They're there to help consult with you, to look across the business, to identify who it is exactly that what you need, and you need to be able to move fast with them as well, right? So like I said, those candidates have got multiple offers, and when we still see in this environment, employers sometimes waiting a week to give candidate feedback to a recruiter, and then come back to the recruiter and saying, okay, great, yeah, thanks. I liked Janet's CV. Happy to interview him. And sorry, pal, they've actually been offered 3 roles since then and have moved on. So you've got to move fast in this environment. Be willing to, treat the recruiters as true partners. And I really think that's the best way to get a good result in this environment.
I completely and totally agree with you. In fact, it's almost like I wrote you a script to say that partner with the right recruiters, act fast, and what have you. So, and obviously treat your current people really well as well, because there are lots of other opportunities out there that they could be considered for.
Correct.
So fantastic advice.
Definitely agree. And I think there's probably some employers that have heard over the last 10 years, they've worked with recruiters, and, recruiters have used it as a bit of a tool to keep things moving of, hey, quick, you got to make an offer. That candidate's got 2 or 3 other offers on the table, right? So it's almost could be like the boy who cried wolf, right? And there's some employers are thinking, oh, that's still just kind of scare tactics. But the reality is, whether you want to accept that or not, that really is happening right now.
Yeah, I've never believed in scare tactics either. I don't think it does you good in the long run anyway. But genuinely, there is complete competition in the market.
Absolutely.
And overall, what's your long-term plan for TalentVine?
So we've got global ambitions. So we really do. So, marketplaces are, like I mentioned, are tough. There's so many moving parts, right? It's not a case of we're just, it's not like we're connecting, employers to, certain widgets or anything like that, right? We're dealing with humans that have a lot of moving parts on one side, the employers, and we're dealing with recruiters that have a lot of moving parts, and their candidates that have a lot of moving parts as well, right? So that's just a way of saying that there's still some things that we want to get even better in the Australian market. But, we've had some good success over the last kind of 6 months, over the last few years, right? And we're building up a good story. So this year, we certainly are going to be going out to be looking to raise our Series A. And as a result of that, we're going to be using that mainly for growth capital, just to, really kind of build out the sales and marketing capability, just to be able to, get even more market share here across Australia, and then use that as the basis for us to then actually look at going and entering another market overseas. So that really is the aim for us, right? We have big audacious vision of being able to, guide the correct humans to the most perfect jobs, and that being done at fees and terms that inspire exceptional work, right? And that's something that we certainly want to help, just to be able to build those businesses of tomorrow. And we can, and I do believe we can do that from here in Brisbane in a global way, and be another Queensland success story.
Fantastic. I love that. Queensland success story. So will your next market be the UK, do you think? Just as you've got the experience there, or?
We're still a bit undecided on that. So there's a few options. So we've got there's one territory over in Asia that we're looking for that would work quite well. We're certainly going to be testing it out in New Zealand, because we have a bunch of existing clients that have asked for us to be in New Zealand already. So that'll be quite an easy test market for us. But to be honest, the US is the main place that we want to be. So you just have it. It would really depend on the growth of our story, how much we're able to raise off the back of that, because it certainly is no cheap feat being able to go into the US, even if you're focused on just one state or city.
Yes, and the typical connector in me is thinking, oh, I know these people here, there, you can put you in contact there, etc., etc.
Thank you.
Anyway, I mean, I'm constantly thinking like that.
Oh, feel free to send a list. That's amazing.
Well, yeah, well, keep me posted, and I'm more than happy to do intros and all that kind of aspect.
Oh, thank you, Nick. You're very kind.
Oh, my pleasure. And one final question, Justin. What advice would you give 15-year-old Justin, which I think, is this the time would you have been about 15 when you left Zimbabwe?
No, I was 19 when I left Zimbabwe.
Ah.
Yeah. What advice would I give 15-year-old Justin? Firstly, put down those disgusting cigarettes, because you're going to smoke them for the next 15 years of your life, and then regret ever picking them up. So that's probably
don't smoke.
Yeah, don't smoke and buy Bitcoin in 2012. So those are probably two big things that I would say. But look, just probably not to worry. I think I was always, I was quite a stress head. I think with everything that was going on in Zimbabwe, where they were just coming and taking our farms, and it was a pretty stressful time to be growing up, and kind of seeing your country being taken away from you. Being a white Zimbabwean as well, I was told in certain terms that I'm not Zimbabwean, and I'm British. So we kind of felt at that age that we almost didn't have a home and much of an identity. So just don't stress so much. Things will work out, and they really do. And I think when you're at this time and you're at this age, and you look back at the tens of thousands of different decisions that you've made in your life and how it's all led to this part, right? Why can't you have faith that you're going to continue making those same decisions for the next 15 years that are going to lead you to your goals and where you want to be as well? So I think would probably be the main thing I'll tell myself.
That's great advice, and I shall pass that on to my 16-year-old daughter, who's got exams this week and is super stressed about how it's going to affect her life forever. And you're like, don't worry, just try hard, love.
Yeah,
don't worry, be happy.
Well, don't tell her then, but I got 3 Ds for my year 12 or my A levels. And then I dropped out of university and I dropped out of my MBA as well. So I realized that institutional education wasn't really for me, and I'm just better at kind of learning on the job. So there you go. Whether you want to pass it on to her or not, I'll leave that with you.
I don't think this week, because she's got all her exams. But thank you very much for the advice. And I think as well, it does prove, Richard Branson, for example, he wasn't really a high achiever at school, but look where he is now. So it's having that, not just being academic, clever, smart, looking at things in different ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your insights, Justin. Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
I think that's it. That's been amazing. I loved it. It's great to go back on the journey and think about some of these things that I haven't considered for some time. So look, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on here and share with you. Obviously, I think we'll probably be working closely over the next year or so, and probably even more than that. And great to be able to share this with the audience too. So thank you,
Perfect.
Nicola.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm glad you had fun, because that's my main aim, is to have fun along the way. Well,
there you go.
You, Justin.
Just like our values. No, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Cheers for now.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. If you're looking for career advice, your next career opportunity, or to grow your tech team, then please call me, Nicola Steel, on 0499 773 546, or go to our website, jjptalent.com.au. The Don't Just Survive, Thrive podcast is part of the Spotlight series, which includes the YouTube channel Spotlight on Software Development. If you want more insights into the software industry, particularly tech startups, then subscribe to the Spotlight on Software Development YouTube channel. Thank you for listening. Until next time.